There it
Welcome
is.
back to the Commanders Declassified podcast. I'm your host tonight, Brian. I'm here with Eric. How are you, man?
Well, I just took third place in a Bruce Arians lookalike contest, so I'm doing all right.
And for those of you listening, Eric has his glasses and his Kangol hat on,
Yeah,
right? Is
yeah.
that
I
the
wasn't
accurate?
intentionally going for this look, but yeah, the fake tan is forthcoming.
Yeah, and don't worry, there won't be any MF bombs tonight to complete the Bruce Arians look, but maybe after pod we'll do that. But we had a big weekend here. The NFL scouting combine took place, and there were some jaw dropping performances there. Did you get a chance to watch any of it? And what did you think of kind of the overall combine and some of these draft picks that were out there?
Yeah, I watched the quarterbacks. That was really the only, and the tight ends. I think were the only guys that I really watched. Just because I had a crazy busy weekend. But yeah, I'm really impressed. My favorite quarterback is Aiden O'Connell because he has my physique and it just makes me feel like I could play in the NFL. That dude, did you see him? He is like
Yeah.
a dad bod king, man. Good for him.
Well,
Whipping it around. I hope he's.
I think he's like 25, 26. Like he's an older quarterback
Oh yeah,
too, and from Purdue. So he'll certainly be there in the mid to late rounds, waiting
yeah.
for somebody. But I think he has long-term NFL backup written all
Oh,
over
he's got a lifetime deal with New Balance. That's what he's got coming.
him.
That dad bod.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
The white
for
grass cutters.
yeah,
Anyway, sorry. I don't want to hijack with my Aiden O'Connell love taking over the
no,
podcast.
no. Don't worry. I'm sure we will get to the quarterbacks here shortly. Ellie will be with us here shortly. He's having some technical difficulties, but we will be, or he will be here to join us in this draft talk, combine talk. So it was reported over the weekend. Obviously, the Commanders were there at the combine. They talked to a lot of prospective players. In particular, they talked to a lot of offensive linemen. I'm looking at the list here. I think it's like 21 players. I want to say probably 18, maybe 19. Yeah, maybe like 18 or like offensive linemen. In particular, Eric, I know you saw the list there. What did you think of that list, kind of the breakdown? Obviously, offensive line is a huge need for us, so it's good that they understand their weaknesses and are trying to address it. But what did you think of that list there with mostly offensive linemen?
I love it. I want to draft all of them. How many picks do we have? Um,
We need
I'm
more.
all in on O line. I mean, a
Yeah,
young, talented offensive line is just what this team needs.
yeah,
I don't really, honestly, I mostly like the rest of the team. Other than the offensive line is just in tatters. So when I see that they're interviewing Broderick Jones, who I love, Paris Johnson, who there's no chance he falls to 16, but if he does, you absolutely grab him.
well,
Steve Avila, one of my favorite guards
Avila,
in the draft. One thing I did
Avila.
notice, Peter Skoronski is listed as a guard, which I kind of thought,
Yeah,
and
his
that's
arms.
fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's got
his
like little
arms
stubby
measured in
32-inch arms.
yeah 32-inch arms.
Yeah,
So
so
I think that sealed
he's
it for
guard.
just about every NFL team
Yeah,
to move him to guard.
but I mean, I think that's where he was going to end up anyway. I think he's very
Yeah,
similar to Zach Martin, Brandon Sheriff, and it's like you could play tackle, you could be good at tackle, or you could be an elite guard. I think Skoronski's got that. So if he's there at 16, and maybe listing him at guard drops him a little bit, and if he's there, you snap him. I'm more than happy to snap him up because I think he is going to be a stud guard. Osiris Torrance, another guard I like. He might be there maybe in round 2. You may have to trade up in round 2 or trade back in round 1, but a lot of centers. Love the idea of I literally would be, if we drafted 7 offensive linemen and nothing else this time around, I would be just ecstatic. I
yeah.
love it.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things that we are in such bad shape on the offensive line that, yeah, just like you said, if we get, 3 guys within the first, 3 or 4 picks, like I'm not going to be upset at all. In fact, I probably would prefer that they do that because our offensive line is so bad, and getting younger and getting stronger and getting more athletic on the offensive line will only help this offense and help Eric Bieniemy and help our receivers, our running backs, quarterbacks, everybody. So I like it. And one thing, too, I know you mentioned Paris Johnson. So he's probably like the top tackle listed on there. If there is a big push on quarterbacks, which we all think that there's going to be a big push on quarterbacks, usually that pushes a lot of talent down the board. So some of these corners, some of these edge rushers, some of these tackles who may go top 10 now may be outside of the top 10 because guys have traded up into, the top 10 to try to get a quarterback. So, there's a chance, small chance, but if Paris Johnson is there, I mean, that would be awesome. I think that would be another long, yeah, that would be another in a long line of great tackles for the Washington franchise. And I think he would be the guy for 10 plus years on that left tackle spot. Slide Leno over to right tackle and, go get some centers and go get some guards. But the other offensive lineman that I like, that I see that they like all the ones I like they interviewed, which is a good sign, is center Joe Tippmann from Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is excellent. He's like 6'3", 300 plus pounds, really athletic, can do a lot of the zone blocking scheme, which I think is probably what we're going to see more of this year with Eric Bieniemy. So really, really excited that they saw him. I think he's somebody maybe third round, maybe second round, depending on where teams kind of value him. But Ellie, what did you think of this combine over the weekend, man?
The combine itself was fantastic. It's probably one of my favorite off-season events. I just like to see the elite athleticism from all areas, especially the big guys getting down and running 4.5s and 4.6s. It really highlights the evolution of the game of football. And what's different now than what it used to be is those athletic big guys, the linemen, are now actually good football players too. Whereas in the past, you had guys like the kid out of Maryland who was like a 4 or 5 guy, but really couldn't play a lick of offensive line. It's different now. And I think that's beautiful because the game of football is evolving. And in order to keep up with that, you got to strategically plan to have a counterattack to what they're trying to do, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. I was looking at some stats. Offensive linemen drafted in the top 16 hit about 70% of the time.
Yes. Yep.
Insanity. And they bust, a little bit less than that. Some are mediocre, blah, blah, blah. Now, but your point about drafting linemen, like the first 3 picks in the draft or whatever, that you're just asking for failure at that point, though, because statistically speaking, you're going to, at least one of those is going to go up in smoke. And so I think, in my opinion, you need to vary your picks a little bit. I get the part about our offensive line being in shambles and things like that, but how much of that can you really address in one offseason? Plus, you have free agency. I think I would rather see them address, and somebody asked this question to us on Twitter too, and my apologies, I don't have the name in front of us, but they said, what part of the line would you address via free agency versus what you would address in the draft? And I think where we're going to pick in the depth at tackle, you get a tackle in the first round of the draft potentially, and then you go like your guard or your interior line through free agency because they're going to be a little bit more affordable.
Yeah, tackle in free agency you're going to overpay a lot. Orlando Brown Jr., Jawan Taylor, those guys, you're going to have to pay through the nose for them. So absolutely get them in the draft because there should be plenty within the first 2 rounds for us to get one. The next thing on there. So as we go through some of these interviews that the team had, plenty of offensive linemen, but hey, with the hiring of Eric Bieniemy, there was a lot of talk. Do we get a tight end? Are we going to draft a tight end? Drafted one in the first round, free agency. There were a couple of tight ends on the interview list here. We got Tucker Kraft from South Dakota, Brenton Strange from Penn State, who I watched a little bit, was a pretty good player, and then of course the behemoth, almost semi-offensive lineman Darnell Washington, tight end from Georgia. And as good as he wasn't even the best tight end at Georgia. That was I want to say his name's Brock Flowers, or Brock Bowers, or whatever that guy's name is. There, he was actually the better tight end there at Georgia, which is crazy because this guy's really good too. Eric, what did you think about some of these tight ends here that they interviewed?
Well, Sam Laporta wasn't on the list. That disappoints me a little bit. He might be my new favorite tight end in the draft. Yes. Iowa tight ends have been money the past couple of years coming out, going back to George Kittle and Hawkinson and Fant. Like that's a good school to draft a tight end. And Laporta, the athleticism checked out. And all those guys, when they got to the NFL, their receiving production jumped. They're not as big a factor in the passing game. Like, I mean, Kittle came out of nowhere. So it's exciting. He's my favorite tight end. Not a big Darnell Washington guy. I mean, he's almost like a jumbo. I just don't know. He doesn't look like he can move that great. Like in game film, he's kind of a lumbering dude. I'm not a huge fan. I do think they draft a tight end. I hope it's somebody like Sam Laporta, but obviously they didn't interview him. Doesn't mean that they don't like him. Just means that they didn't get a chance to talk to him or whatever. But yeah, I'm excited. Tight end upgrade I think is needed because they seem to like Logan Thomas. It appears that he's coming back. I'm not sure how much he's got left in the tank at this point. I guess we'll see. But like I said, I've said it before. Nobody stepped up in his absence last year. Nobody filled that void. So I think a new tight end is definitely needed. And an athletic receiving tight end would definitely fit the bill in this draft. And technically, they count as offensive linemen, so it would still fulfill my 7 offensive lineman rule.
There you go. But yeah, I think you're right. There definitely needs to be some injection of some different talent into the tight end room. Le, what again? Eric Bieniemy, everyone started to change their thinking from offensive tackle, corner in the draft to tight end. We got a couple of guys here that they interviewed. Your thoughts on tight end and a couple of these guys?
So here's the thing, and really it's a problem. I have 2 problems for you. The first one is, how long does Bieniemy have to cultivate players through the draft? I know we want to say get everything through the draft, but is he going to get time to see those draft picks mature into reasonable football players? That's something that you have to ask yourself as an organization, honestly, before you determine your approach to getting one. Now, the Laporta thing versus the Washington's only slightly slower. I think he ran a 4.64 40. Laporta ran a 4.59 or something like that, but it's negligible in the tight end position. I like Washington a lot. I think the reality though is tight ends don't come into the league and take the league by storm as rookies. Like, who was the best rookie tight end that was drafted last year? If I had to ask you that question, who would you answer? Right? Like, you probably couldn't.
Wasn't the guy we took.
You couldn't right. You couldn't come up with an answer. Tight end is the hardest position to learn and transition to the NFL to coming out of college, because you got to learn 2 positions at one time. It takes time for tight ends. So yes, I think the Commanders are interested in adding tight end depth, but I don't think, like, if their plan is to go with Logan Thomas next year and add depth, I hate that plan already. Okay. It just didn't work last year. It hasn't worked the last couple of years. Injuries are a real thing. He's not getting younger. And at some point, you just have to cut the cord, right? But I just don't know how much productivity you can expect from a rookie tight end in the NFL at this point in time. And so I think you have to address this position in free agency. But yes, they are showing definite interest in tight end. So I could see them doing something. I don't know if it would, bubble up to a 2nd or 3rd round pick necessarily, but maybe something a little later on is probably what's most likely.
Yeah, no, I agree. Tight end early would be, first round certainly. I think is a little too much. I don't think the value there, and especially with Washington. My wife is a Georgia fan, so I watched all of these Georgia football games, and he wasn't even the best tight end. Brock Bowers was the guy out there catching all these touchdowns for Georgia. Mackey Award winner, right? The nation's best tight end. Like, he was awesome. Eric, I think you mentioned it. He was just kind of a big lumbering guy running down the field. I saw some drops. Like, I don't get the buzz with him. Certainly in the mid rounds, 4th, 5th round, something like that. If we target a tight end, I think that's great. I think that's probably where you see this other guy that the Commanders interviewed, Brenton Strange, from Penn State, somebody that Jahan Dotson's probably going to be familiar with, maybe a better value somewhere around there. But yeah, I'm not so sure that Darnell Washington would be the guy in the 1st round or early 2nd or anything like that. But
it's one of the reasons I hate the combine is that a guy like that who runs fast. I mean, the buzz around him is because he ran a 4.64, but when you watch him play,
exactly,
he just doesn't look fast. So you have to, the film, you have to take it with a grain of salt. And a lot of people tend to lose their minds around combine time with people's athletic ability.
Yeah, no, agreed. This is where you're going to see some guys take a jump, right, if they test well. Ellie, let's start with you. You've been saying for a while now, we need some more juice in the running back room. We need some explosiveness. We need guys who have the speed, the vision to take it to the house when they touch it. Maybe not necessarily a bunch of carries, but somebody who with limited carries can gain chunks of yards. Any running backs stick out to you from the combine? And then also in particular, Eric Gray from Oklahoma and Tajay Spears, Senior Bowl wonder that the Commanders interviewed over this weekend.
Forget both of those guys you talked about. I mean, look, honestly, like, do you think that they're looking for a starting running back in the draft at this point? I don't. So to me, what they need is electricity out of the position, right? More explosiveness. You have two running backs already. Brian Robinson Jr. is just going to grind it out, low and just yard by yard. What do they say? 3 yards in a cloud of dust. That's him to a T. And honestly, at this point in Antonio Gibson's career, I'm no longer sure of what he is as a running back. His carries have been inconsistent, and so has his production. So I don't know, but I don't think that they're looking for an RB1 this year in the draft, though I could make an argument that they should just because of the productivity that you can get at the position all over the place. Running backs are there. There's a lot of running backs available. That being said, I think the one running back that makes the most sense and really impressed me at the combine was Devin Achane. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. He's the ideal receiving slash speed back out of the backfield. He ran a 4.3 240 at the combine. And everybody likes this J.D. McKissick role, right? But we don't have a J.D. McKissick type running back on the roster. And I'm sorry, I just don't think J.D. McKissick's going to play anymore because of his injury issues. J.D. McKissick ran a 4.56 or a 4 something 40 at the combine when he was there. This guy runs a 4.32, has great hands, is incredibly explosive, and would give our offense that home run threat that it needs out of the backfield, and could also be split wide. He can also be a return man. Now, because of his size, you can't give him 20 carries a game, but you wouldn't be looking to do that anyway, right? You already have the bruisers. Get you somebody who is the complete opposite of what you have on this roster to change the game up, especially because with a quarterback like Sam Howell, you're going to want to protect him with quick passes to the running back. That is a young quarterback's best friend, even though he struggles with that a little bit, or at least did in college in the short throws to the running backs. I think you could really, really help him out a lot. And I think Devin Achane is the ideal solution there. And he's probably going to be available in the 3rd, 4th round.
Yeah, no, I like Achane. Just like you said, he is light. He's like 185 pounds. But again, you're not going to be asking him to run the ball 20 times between the tackles. So that size concern or that weight concern is a lot less at that point. But you're right. J.D. McKissick was so valuable. How many catches did he have in that first year in 2020? It was like 70 or 80, 75. And they were all. Yeah, they were all checkdowns that he turned into first downs, and that is such a useful tool for an offense and for a young quarterback. So, yeah, no, I agree with you. Eric, any running backs stand out to you, or any thoughts on these two guys here, Eric Gray from Oklahoma or Tajay Spears from Tulane?
Yeah, Tajay Spears, I don't like guys who blow up at the combine, but I do like guys who blow up at the Senior Bowl or the bowl. So guys that come out that have really good weeks. Those are the guys that I like, because one of my biggest pet peeves is guys who blow up after the game's end, right? Like, I can't stand when somebody's draft stock just shoots up the board in January, February, right? But when you look at somebody who, Terry McLaurin is a prime example. Like, he had a fantastic week at the Senior Bowl, and that shot him from like 5th round pick up to 3rd round pick, and look what he's turned into. Those are the guys that I like. So when I see Tajay Spears having a good Senior Bowl week and putting together a decent combine, then I get a little excited about that. So I'm completely okay with that. Getting back to the J.D. McKissick role, we actually have somebody who can fill that role. It's Antonio Gibson, and I think he could do it well if they just committed to it, because he's 4.3 speed and he's 220 pounds. So he's even more J.D. McKissick than J.D. McKissick potentially. But yeah, the little scat back A-Chain, he's a cool little scat back, and I think I would have no problem with him on the roster. I think he does provide something a little different, and if he can protect himself, if he knows how to get tackled and knows how to go down, you can have a decent career at 185 pounds at running back. Guys have done it before. Warwick Dunn comes to mind, like, as a guy that just knew how to protect himself. Barry Sanders was a prime example. Emmitt Smith was great at protecting himself. Not that they were 180 pounds, but like, if there's a way that you can just go down, you don't have to subject yourself to those brutal hits as a running back. And and you guys said he wouldn't be a 20 carry a game guy anyway. I wouldn't have a problem with him at all. And if Bijan Robinson fell to 16, I'd probably draft him. even over Paris Johnson. I just don't think it's going to happen. I just hope he doesn't end up in like Philly. That would be the worst because they pick at 10. That would suck. Because then you got Saquon and, and then you got Robinson and Philly and adding in what they already have. He's a great runner. He's a potentially awesome running back. I just don't want him seeing him in the NFC East. And there's a chance he ends up here.
You said something interesting, though, that I think really the point needs to be hammered home. If Bijan Robinson drops to 16, you got to run to the podium and take him because he's the
absolutely
player who won the draft. If Bryce Young, is his name Bryce Young from Alabama, right? Why do you not think it's Bryce? Is it Bryce? It's Bryce, right?
Yeah, no, that's Bryce Young.
Sorry, it wouldn't resonate. If he falls to 16, you have to take him, and figure the rest out later. So, now one of those quarterbacks is going to slide. I don't know who it is. It could be Richardson because of the inexperience, but I think his talent's going to get GMs real thirsty about him. It could be Will Levis, but I think he's already penciled in to go to the Colts based on what they like in quarterbacks. It's not going to be CJ Stroud. I would think it wasn't, but if CJ Stroud's available at 16, you got to run to the podium and take him. So that's not going to happen. It's going to be one of those quarterbacks, though, that's going to be there near where we're picking. And I would love to see one of two things happen. Let's let a quarterback needy team trade up to our spot and take them. Or if it's one of the elite prospect quarterbacks, because look, we argue about this Anthony Richardson thing all the time, right? On the text message. However, if we're at 16 and Anthony Richardson is there, you have a decision to make. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion you have to draft him at that position, as much as I think he would be a great asset to our roster to see if we can capitalize on the talent. You have an option to make to see if you can get more draft picks to fill out the roster even better at that point. But if it's Bryce Young, the number one overall prospect, it's a different conversation at that point, right? Because now you have somebody who is potentially considered to be elite already with his processing and just field vision and leadership that you could put on the roster. So different conversations. The Spears guy, Tajay Spears, I say no thank you. He's a 4.6 40 guy in that range. And I just don't know what he's going to provide that you're not already getting from Brian Robinson, right? Unless he's a super elusive running back at 4.6. I don't know. Gibson and McKissick, to me, not even close. Gibson's longest play is like 27 yards, right? Since his rookie year. McKissick is
73 actually against Buffalo. He had like a 73-yard touchdown.
But that was a rookie, though. That's what I'm saying. Right? So that was
2021. In 21. Against Buffalo in 21. Google it.
Yeah, whatever. But it's 2023, man. So he hasn't had, and that was like week 4, week 6, something like that. But the point is, the explosive plays have disappeared from Antonio Gibson's game. I don't know why. So that's not, in my opinion, what we're looking for out of that JD McKissick role. There's a role for Antonio Gibson at running back. It's just not in that McKissick role, in my opinion. I think this is a very specific role. You're talking about 4 carries a game or less and 4 catches a game out of the backfield, right? And then he splits out wide and just creates matchup problems. Antonio Gibson's a potential matchup problem, but not a definitive matchup problem. Whereas A-Chain and his elite speed, Gibson has good speed. A-Chain has elite speed at that position and quickness. There's a difference to me. And I think he would just be such a phenomenal asset in that role.
Yeah, I think Tajay. He's definitely not a grinded out type of guy. He's more, even though he's got that 4.6, but he's a little bit more similar in terms of like a Kamara, where they're more shifty, elusive. Some of the routes that he ran during Senior Bowl practice, I mean, the linebackers just could not stay with him in coverage at all. So I think that his game would be more in that way than just run it up the middle type, like with Brian Robinson on that. The guy I like at running back, he was there at the combine. I think he just did some measurements. He's going to play, or he's going to run at his pro day. He had a hamstring, is Israel Abanikanda from Pitt. He's also another fast guy who can absolutely fly. He's got hands. He can go between the tackles, go outside, cannot pass block at all. So that's not something that he can do right now. He'll have to get better at that. But just somebody who's got speed and got plenty of it. So hopefully maybe we get to see him at his pro day at Pitt here later this month. Next thing that the Commanders did during the combine, one of the positions, Ellie, you talked about it the last pod. Who do we get mocked to the most, or what position in the first round? That's cornerback. The Commanders did talk to some cornerbacks. Christian Gonzalez from Oregon. I think that's probably the top cornerback in everybody's list, or one of the top. Joey Porter Jr., Penn State, another Penn State guy. And both Christian and Joey Porter Jr., big guys. They're 6'2", just shy of 200 pounds. I think Joey Porter maybe 200 pounds. Christian Gonzalez, I think, is like 193, 197, something like that. Devin Witherspoon, another cornerback, a little bit smaller guy, 6 foot, 190, 189, somewhere around there. So a little bit smaller, but extremely good ball skills. Julius Brents, Kansas State. This guy looks kind of like Benjamin St. Juice, 6'3" corner, 205 pounds, extremely fast. Probably still needs to work on some things. Certainly not going to be drafted as high. Somebody you can probably get second, third round, from there. And then also I'll throw him in here because he was the only one. Safety Christopher Smith from Georgia. Ellie, cornerbacks. If we do go cornerback, what do you think of any of these guys, or was there another cornerback that you saw over the weekend that you think would help us?
Yeah, I actually think this is where we're going with the 16th pick if we stay there.
Yeah.
We've been mocked to take cornerbacks all off season. Every time I see a mock draft come out, it's a cornerback at this spot. The depth is just right for a really good player to be available to us at the 16th pick. The question, I think, is it going to be Joey Porter Jr., which I could see. Although there's just that part of me that thinks he's going to the Steelers just because, right? Or even a Kylie Ringo out of Georgia. I think that, those guys there, whatever we do, who's the really big corner, the really long one? Was it Kansas State or something like that? TCU, I forget. But
no, Christian Gonzalez. He's the Oregon guy. He's. I think everyone thinks he's the top guy, and then the Devin Witherspoon probably number 2.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it like this, and Philadelphia might go corner too. Remember their Super Bowl, right? So it's a position we have to fill, and it might feel like we're filling it early, but I think we can't just sit back and count our chickens from last year on defense, right? There's going to be some regression in some key spots, and corner very well could be that position that happens. And we just need to upgrade in general too. I mean, we need a new slot corner and some other things, but I think I just look at, and St. Juice can't stay healthy. Sorry, St. Juice, he can't. So you have a opportunity at 16 to get one of the best players at the position. I think you absolutely have to do it unless one of those other scenarios comes up, which we're talking about, like one of those, top 5 ranked players falls down to 16. Then you got to hop on that. But if that doesn't happen, cornerback for me is the way to go. You still have Charles Leno under contract at left tackle, right? So you got that spot that you're not going to change more than likely. You got to figure out what you're doing with Cosme on the O-line if you're going to move him to guard or whatever. So at O-line, there's pieces there that you're going to have to work with because of what you've done in the past to put those pieces in place. Whereas with corner, I think you have a lot of flexibility. Kendall Fuller's getting older. Get the best guy. And to me, the best guy that's going to be available at 16 is going to be a cornerback. And I would love for it to be Joey Porter Jr.
Absolutely. I think with any of those top 3 guys, I don't think you can go wrong. I don't think there's one that's like a bad downside or something like that. I think they're all probably going to be good. Eric, cornerback. If we do go cornerback, what do you think about the guys that we interviewed, or was there somebody else that you had your sights set on?
Well, I really like Christian Gonzalez, but I think he's going to be long gone by the time 16 rolls around because I think he is the top corner in the draft. And the other guys scare me a little bit, Witherspoon and Porter, not because they aren't great players, and throw Ringo in there with that as well. It's about scheme fit with those guys. I talked about it when I did the mock a couple weeks ago. Those guys are all really geared toward press man. And we saw with William Jackson what a press man corner does in this defense, like an exclusive. So I guess the question becomes, like, how comfortable do we feel putting those guys in our scheme? And not that I don't like, in a perfect world, Joey Porter Jr. makes great sense because I think he's going to be a stud corner in the NFL. But is Jack Del Rio going to make the necessary changes to his coverages and his, the way he plays defense to allow for somebody like him to flourish, right? Because like I said, with William Jackson, we saw it. They weren't willing to do that. And they wanted to, it's a square peg in a round hole. So while I do love Joey Porter Jr., it scares me a little bit based on going into this defense like that, where he's going to be misused here. And Emmanuel Forbes, I said on my mock, is a guy I really like that's going to be available later. That's the other good thing about this draft, is very deep in corner. Emmanuel Forbes, I think outside of Gonzalez, is probably the best zone corner. Like he's a pure zone corner, so he's nowhere near Gonzalez like overall. But as a zone corner, I think he's probably the second best zone corner in the draft, and he's more than likely gonna be there in round 2. So if we're going corner, I would gamble a little bit and wait on corner, because I get it. I don't see a bigger need on this team than offensive line. I understand corner, like you got to get better at the cornerback position. This draft is very deep at corner. I think you can find one later in the draft that could fit what you do better than what those guys can do. Not that like I said, I love those guys as players. I just don't know that they're going to work here. So you can hate on me in the comments or whatever. I get a little worried about Del Rio's rigidity in his scheme defensively, that those guys aren't going to be used to their fullest potential here. So I'm still thinking offensive line at 16.
Yeah,
Hey, Brian, real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry. I looked something up. I looked at the top corners in the league. Do you know what they have in common? They're all listed at 6'1", which I thought was really interesting. Jalen Ramsey, 6'1", listed. Xavier Howard, 6'1". AJ Terrell, 6'1". JC Jackson, 6'1". It's weird that's like sort of like those are the top 4 cornerbacks in the league, and they're all exactly 6'1" according to this list. Then I looked at the cornerbacks that are coming out, and I think most of them are 6'2". It's good.
Well, yeah. If you look at the last couple of years, you have Surtain, who came out of Alabama. He's like 6'2", ran a 4.4 or 4.3. Like their corners are getting bigger now. And I don't necessarily know why, because you've got these receivers.
AJ Brown.
Well, yeah, but you've got more guys like a Jahan Dotson, Chris Olave, like some of these smaller guys Tyreek Hills, who can go everywhere. But Ellie's right. They are getting bigger, right? The 5'10", the 5'7", the 5'8" corner who you used to put in the slot is really kind of no more. They're all getting enormous. But
I can't find one corner in this draft in the top ranking that's 6'1". So like if 6'1" is the magic number with the top corners in the league, draft a 6'1" guy, but there isn't one. There's 6'2" or 6 foot. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And Eric, the Emmanuel Forbes, he weighed in at 166. My man needs to eat a sandwich or something. 166 pounds. That's for playing corner, where you may have to tackle a big running back or mix it up with an offensive lineman now and again. He's going to have to put on some weight or something. But I agree. I think I agree with you guys. I'm always going to default to offensive line, because I think it just when your offensive and defensive lines are strong, it makes everything else better. Quarterback play, receivers, running backs, safety, linebackers, it makes all of them better. But Christian Gonzalez, I think, he can do it all. Press man coverage, zone coverage. But Eric was right. I think he is better at man coverage. I think Joey Porter Jr., while he can do all of the techniques, I think he's a better press man coverage. We don't run a lot of press man. Do we do it sometimes? Sure, but we don't run a lot of it. So I think that may be more of that square peg, round hole issue again that we've had in the past. So if by some magic Christian Gonzalez falls, I take him. The other guy from Illinois, Devin Witherspoon. Yes, I think he's about 190, 185 or 188, 190, somewhere around there, 6 foot, a little bit smaller. I think he is a little bit more handsy than the other two guys. I think, some guys call it, more competitive at the catch point. I think it, may just be handsy. I think that may get flagged in the NFL. But, also another good player. But you can go down second round, third round with cornerback. It's a very deep class. So if you don't get a guy in the first round, there will be somebody, like you said, an Emmanuel Forbes. I think there's another guy. There's 2 guys from Maryland, Deontay Banks, 6'2" guy.
Banks. I've seen him on some mocks like at 12. This is crazy.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no,
I've seen people taking him like the Patriots or somebody taking him like way high. And no, I like him too, though. I like him a lot.
Yeah, there's Deontay Banks, the other corner from Maryland, Jacovian Bennett. He also ran a 4.3, like 6'1". To Ellie's point, these are all bigger corners. But then there's like Garrett Williams from Syracuse, another bigger corner, but you can get in probably early third round, late second. So very deep class. But I think Christian Gonzalez, like him doing all those drills out there running the 40, it just looked smooth. It looked like he was walking out there while the rest of the guys were running. All right. So one of the other positions that they interviewed, which it was just one guy, which, almost makes me feel like they interviewed this guy as their backup. They didn't even want to, almost like a Jahan Dotson, where we never heard about Jahan Dotson's name until draft day. So Dion Henley, linebacker, Washington State, smaller linebacker, one of these kind of former, almost converted strong safety type bodies, around 6 foot. 220 type of guy, faster, can do more in coverage. But he is aggressive in the run game, but not necessarily somebody who's going to kind of be that enforcer. Ellie, what did you think about? Did you see any linebackers that you liked? I know there was a couple that I liked, but they only interviewed one. This guy.
I didn't even look because they don't care about linebackers. So neither do I. I didn't waste my time. I thought about it and I was like, you know what? We've gotten our hopes up every year about all these linebackers and they don't care about them. They signed David Mayo to play. They put him next to Jamin Davis and they call it a wrap at addressing that position. Jack Del Rio clearly doesn't want to go to a 3 linebackers set. I'm not going to waste my time on it. Now, I know Cole Holcomb is a free agent.
Yeah.
I looked the last list I looked at for free agency. He wasn't in the top 50 available free agents, meaning that I don't know how highly he's going to be sought after, but he has some athleticism to him, so I'm sure he's going to get a decent deal from somebody. I can't waste my time on linebackers because the team just doesn't put value on the position. I think they should, and yes, I think there are some linebackers that could really benefit us, but the team just doesn't seem to care about that. They're going to play their safety mix, and they're going to play their 5D linemen, and they're going to figure it out that way, regardless of how many times we get beat over the middle. But I didn't invest a lot of time in the linebackers because of that reason.
Yeah, no, you're right. And with the amount of time you invested in the linebackers, it was a lot more than what our team does. You're exactly right. Eric, linebacker, Dion Henley, or anybody else at the combine that you saw?
So when we're talking about linebackers, and
Yes.
based on the way we play defense, all I'm thinking about is safeties. Like that's why that Christopher Smith interview stands out to me, because that's the kind of guy that we would sign and have him come down the box and play linebacker. Brian Branch is another one that I do like 50 mocks a day because I'm a giant nerd. And he falls a lot. Brian Branch falls to 16 a lot, and he's a do-it-all player too. I mean, he's very.
Yep.
I almost want to comp him to Bobby McCain, but I know Brian's head will explode if I do that. But he's kind of he's in that mold, right? Like where they can put him wherever they really need him, and he's probably better at certain things than others. But you can kind of stick him anywhere. Cam Curl's a guy like that, right? So those are the kind of guys that I think that when I think linebacker, like I don't think this team is going to draft a linebacker. I just don't. Certainly not in the first couple of rounds, right? They may grab somebody as a special teamer in round 6 or 7. But I think, I think a strong safety is basically a linebacker in our defense. So that kind of made the Christopher Smith interview. And he actually brought up the team like unsolicited. He just like started talking about the Commanders without being asked. He was like, yeah, man, I really like what they got going on down there. So that's somebody. I don't know what round. I didn't do a lot of research on him, unfortunately. I don't know what round he's projected. I think he's like a day 2 pick. I could be wrong there, so I apologize. But that's one to keep an eye on, because if he's that excited about being here, it tells me that he had a really good interview. Yeah. At least he thinks he did. So he's a guy that, like I said, for a linebacker role, I think a strong safety would be more likely to be the pick, and then just kind of put into that whatever role. So no, I don't care about linebackers in this draft. There's some good ones, but I don't care.
Yeah, I think you're right. Christopher Smith, will probably be valued by us much higher than a lot of other teams, because we use that strong safety as the linebacker, as almost another pass rusher and run defender and all kinds of things. Somebody who's also going to cover the tight end, because that's what we ask some of our safeties to do a little bit more than our linebackers. I want linebackers, but yeah, you guys are right. You guys are dead on. This team, for whatever reason, does not care about linebackers. They think that they can handle everything with additional safeties. And yeah, it works sometimes, but when it comes to the run game, it doesn't really work, that much. One of the guys I really like is Jack Campbell from Iowa. He tested excellent, and it just solidified what he did on tape, which is he is a middle linebacker. He knows how to get guys lined up. He's an enforcer in the run game. I think he would allow Jamin Davis to use his athletic ability more out on the edge and in space more, instead of Rivera trying to force him to play kind of just, in the box constantly. You're right. We're probably not going to draft him. He'll go somewhere else and play.
The key to the linebacker, though, is position flexibility. Whether he's a linebacker or safety, he's got to be able to play both. He's got to be a nickel corner. You saw Jamin Davis line up at corner
that's crazy.
44 times last year, defensive end 30-something times. Like, they want everybody to play everywhere in this defense, and you're going to have to do that if you're a linebacker in this draft. So somebody that's a pure downhill thumper, kind of like a John Bostic, probably won't be the pick. To Eric's point, it could be a convert. I hate that. I wish they would find just pure backers to play the position, but this is clearly what they want to do, and they were effective enough with it last year to continue with it again this year, at least get a pass on what they're trying to do with that position.
And when these small linebacker safeties get injured, John Bostic and David Mayo will be running roughshod over our defense for like 8 games. Let's talk about the last one on here. It's only one, but I did hear on Rich Eisen's podcast, Anthony Richardson did interview with the Commanders. He also interviewed with every other team in the NFL. Like, he literally listed all of them: Dallas, Saints, Patriots. He just went through the entire list, but we were on there as well too. Looks like we interviewed Dorian Thompson-Robinson from UCLA. LE quarterbacks. Who did you like from the weekend? What do you think about the Dorian Robinson or Thompson-Robinson? Excuse me.
So I like CJ Stroud. I had never really paid attention to CJ Stroud because I don't watch a lot of college football. I was incredibly impressed with the way that he threw the football at the combine. Now, people that watch college football more than I do were probably already aware of that and thus weren't equally as surprised and impressed. I just thought he looked amazing throwing the football and where he was putting the ball, and his whole just quarterback vibe was just off the charts. I liked the Dorian kid from UCLA too. I think I sent a message about that to somebody, but he looked really smooth throwing the football. The issue is with somebody like that, you got to go back to the game tape 100% to see why he's not even considered to be in the top like 10 quarterbacks, or top 8 is probably fair. So there's got to be more to the story. So I liked how he looked at the combine, but I'm smart enough to say there's probably more context there to where I think he was getting projected in the 7th or 6th round or something like that. So I don't want to take the bait on that one. So I will say the CJ Stroud, just because I know he's a top pick and I think he's absolutely phenomenal. I was very impressed with Richardson at the combine. I just, as much as like, yes, we met with them, it felt like due diligence. I just don't see it where we are the ones that take it. First of all, I think he's going to go too high for that. But second of all, I think, it just, is Rivera going to take a chance on that guy at this point in his career? And is Eric Bieniemy going to want to marry his future as a head coach in the NFL to Richardson? Now, again, my belief is if you're a good coordinator, you can find a way to make anybody successful, right? Now, the question is, will you be able to capitalize on their full potential? And that's what you really ultimately should be judged by. But good coordinators can find a way to make anybody look good. See Kyle Shanahan. I just don't see it happening with Richardson as much as I think it would be fun.
Yeah. No, I think he'll probably be gone before he gets to us. And if he does get to us, I can see other teams calling us with draft picks in their hands, ready to give us. That might make Rivera kind of think about, hey, do I trade it or do I take him? And as far as Eric Bieniemy, yeah, he's got to get guys for his system. I think there's probably a limit to, whether you can, just kind of do anything where there's certain guys, if they're not, a scheme fit for you. But certainly, I think all the quarterbacks look good, even down to, I was surprised, again, I watched a lot of Georgia football at Stetson Bennett. He's a guy there. That Georgia team was unbelievable. So he didn't really face a lot of pressure. He didn't have a lot of adversity there at Georgia because they just kind of ran over everybody. But he throws a nice deep ball. I was very surprised kind of how smooth and how fluid he was. But yeah, Ellie, to your point, C.J. Stroud, he kind of what he's known for is that ball placement. He is extremely accurate where he puts the football. That's kind of one of his calling cards on there. Eric, over the weekend, what quarterback did you like, stood out to you, and then any thoughts on this Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who the Commanders interviewed?
It's funny. I saw him throwing. He was one of the guys throwing to the tight ends, and I was like, huh. We looked at it because I was watching him throw, and he looked pretty good throwing, and I'm kind of like, interesting. Let me look this guy up. And definitely a developmental type quarterback, but I wouldn't mind him. He's very athletic. And I'm actually I watched a little bit of him, and he's fun to watch as a quarterback. So I don't think he's a starter anytime soon, but I get it, and I can see the potential there. He's a very athletic quarterback, and we like those for the most part. I think you guys said it. C.J. Stroud was magnificent. He's my favorite quarterback in the draft. Bryce Young, I like. The size scares me a little bit with Bryce Young, but if it's it just depends. Can he can clearly play the position? Can he succeed at the NFL level? Like, I'm pretty sure he'll be a solid NFL quarterback. I don't know if he's ever going to be a superstar. C.J. Stroud has that potential to just be like a really top-notch quarterback in the NFL. He makes every throw. He's so smooth at it. And people, I don't know why people complain about Stroud not using his mobility to extend plays.
Well, he didn't have to.
Yeah, it's like, I don't think that's going to be a problem for him in the NFL. Like, he didn't have to in college as much. And he is obviously looking to throw first and foremost, and he's a pretty good quick decision maker. So, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think, he ran well. I think he ran a 4.6, which is fine for a quarterback. Pretty good for a quarterback, actually. I don't think it's going to be a problem moving in the NFL. He's still my favorite. Will Levis got the cannon arm. He's got all the pretty stuff. Going back over his stuff a little bit, the thing that concerns me the most about him, like, he threw a lot of interceptions, but he was also trailing a lot, and he threw most of his interceptions when he was behind, when he was trying to come from behind. That does not give me warm and fuzzies for somebody who's trying to play quarterback in the NFL. He seems like he's kind of a fair weather quarterback, maybe. So he scares me a little bit. I think he still goes probably top 10. I think, you guys are saying Indianapolis. I think Indianapolis is going to trade up. I think they're the ones that are going to make the deal with the Bears and go get Bryce Young. And I think Will Levis ends up in Carolina with Frank Reich, which is probably a good fit for him. But I don't care for him much as a quarterback. So, C.J. Stroud's still my favorite. He was going in. He didn't do anything to make him not my favorite now. So, if he's there at 16, you absolutely take him. We got a lot of guys to take at 16, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
If they're there.
C.J. Stroud.
We're taking everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
I looked up C.J. Stroud's NFL comparison. It was Joe Burrow and Jared Goff, which is an interesting mix. I could see that. Will Levis, and I know we got to move to free agency, Brian, but Will Levis reminds me a lot of Carson Wentz in a way, where I know I like the Jameis Winston comparison too. But I can see a lot of Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I was just going to say Jameis. Jameis's last year in college, right? He won the national championship, I think, his junior or sophomore year. His junior year, he had this thing where he would throw so many first half interceptions, but then he was perfect in the second half. He didn't miss a pass, and he would throw like 3 touchdowns in the second half, bring Florida State back. And he did that like the entire year, where he'd have like interceptions in the first half and then nothing but touchdowns in the second half. And I feel like it's almost very similar to
but the opposite with Levis.
Yeah, probably the opposite. You know, but it's almost a tale of two halves, right? He'll play good one half,
Mhm.
whether it's the second half or first half, and then the next half he looks terrible. He's throwing the ball anywhere, interception. So very kind of streaky, but it just kind of reminded me. I was like, that's exactly kind of how Jameis played that last year. It was so streaky, it was night and day, almost like a light switch with him. But yeah, the quarterbacks, yeah, Stroud, you know, I thought looked really good. And then, you know, I think he showed that mobility in that Georgia game. He actually, because he had probably 10 NFL players running, trying to run him down in that bowl game. So he was able to use some of that athleticism and show everybody. But Ellie's right. We've got free agency. Ellie, where do you want to start on free agency for this football team?
I really only got one position I care about the most in free agency, and that's if, and of course, this is if we don't plan to address it in the draft, but who's a veteran backup quarterback going to be? Because there's a very realistic chance that this quarterback is going to play. I don't know when the last time we had a quarterback play all 16 games in a season was. Maybe Kirk Cousins, was it?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and how long has it been since Kirk Cousins was here? So there's a very real possibility that this quarterback's going to play meaningful games. So I want to know who they're going to go after in free agency as a quarterback. I had some thoughts that it might be Jameis because I think he would make a lot of sense as a backup. He gives the right kind of push, but maybe doesn't do enough to overtake Sam Howell, or he could. I don't know. But then I started to think more about Sam Darnold today and what he could do and who he is. He played really well at the end of the year for Carolina. I think there's a lot of people that are still convinced he can be a starter in this league. A lot of GMs. I don't think a lot of fans think that way, but he would be a good situation too. But it's just, really what it is how much of a push are they really looking for Sam Howell in competition for the starting position? Are they really looking for somebody to give him a little bit of competition, but they know he's going to win it in the end? If that's the case, then it's going to be somebody more like a Darnold or a Dalton or something like that in theory. But I don't know. So like to me, I think yes, they're going to address the O-line. I don't really care that much about the O-line because I think they're still going, no matter what they do this offseason, they're still going to be a few years away. And I don't like the idea of committing a bunch of money to that position group in one offseason, just like I don't like committing a bunch of draft picks to that position group in one offseason, because you're going to lock yourself in on contracts that are going to not prove to be as valuable as you want them to be. The numbers just don't work like that. So I would like to see him get one in the draft, one in free agency. Like I said, interior line free agency, pick up a starter in the draft somewhere, maybe center or something like that. But I want to see who the backup quarterback is going to be. I don't think it's Brissett. I think he's going to have too many opportunities and cost too much money. I heard some of the local reporters say it's going to be a bargain bin free agency period again for Ron Rivera.
Mm-hmm.
So that already tells you where they're going to go and what they're not going to do. So you're going to start getting some of the late round or late prospects. You're probably not going to be too involved day one. So I don't know. It just takes the juice out of free agency, which I hate because it used to be so fun, even though it didn't amount to wins. It was always really cool to see us get like one of the really big name free agents, but we're not in that market anymore. So tell me who we're going to get a backup quarterback, and that's what I care about.
Eric, what are you expecting to see in free agency, or who are you interested in seeing or position in free agency for the Commanders?
I agree. It's going to be a bargain bin. It's going to be a very dull. I mean, there's only 16 million, I think, in cap space right now after the franchise tag for Deron Payne. So there's just not a lot to work with there. Like LE quarterback is, I'm thinking that's that's the main one. I think that's the first one to get addressed. They have to go out and get a bargain bin. I still think Teddy Bridgewater, if he chooses, I don't think he's retired yet. I think he's kind of the type of the level of quarterback they would probably want. He might be a little expensive for what they're trying to pay, though. Another name that I think about is Nick Mullins, who has started a lot of games with the 49ers in a somewhat similar system to what we assume the enemy is going to run, which would be a run-heavy West Coast offense. So he's a guy I would maybe keep my eye on as well. But that's the level that we're looking at. I think guys like Brissett still sees himself as a starter. I think he's going to command a little more money. He's probably him and Jameis are probably the top two like vet quarterbacks left on the market. Now that Derek Carr's gone, Baker Mayfield would be in there. Baker Mayfield's not happening. Sam Darnold, I don't think that's going to work here. I think he still views himself as a starter. I think he really wants to push for that starting job, and I don't think that I think he's going to be a little pricey as well. I think somebody will pay him. But yeah, I could be wrong on that. But I think we're going to be looking very, very, very second tier, like 1 and 2 star level free agents. So I think, Teddy Bridgewater would be like striking gold for this, which is a weird thing to say because obviously he's not the future. He has a lot of trouble staying healthy, but he's a nice, safe player. He's been a backup. He's been a starter. You can count on him if he comes in for at least a couple of games. But there's just not a lot out there in free agency. Like Nathan Peterman out there. You want him? No. Cooper Rush is an interesting name, but I think I think that little stretch he got probably got him a little bit of money, probably a little more than we would want to pay anyway. But yeah, I do think, Teddy Bridgewater and Nick Mullins are the two that jump out at me as far as like the type of guy that we're going to sign. So that's where I'm going. As far as guard goes, I like the interior offensive line. I would like to address that in free agency as well. Obviously, I think somebody like Ben Powers is going to be out of our price range. Will Hernandez is a name that he's kind of fizzled out in previous stops, so I'm not 100% sure. But I did like him coming out of college, and who knows, maybe with some better coaching, he could turn into what I think he was a second round pick, and maybe he could play up to that level. Not a lot out there though. Everything's pricey, and again, tight end. Would love to address tight end. OJ Howard's out there. Everybody thinks he's going to end up here, an Alabama guy. Never really panned out in the NFL. He's probably got 1 or 2 stops left, but why not? If you're looking for a secondary tight end, maybe you can resurrect his. Maybe Juan Castillo can work his magic and resurrect OJ Howard's career and turn him into something. But yeah, those are the positions I'd like to see. Obviously, everything on offense because our offense was putrid last year. But it's going to be a dull free agency period.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you guys as well. I think we've all heard the same media reports that free agency will be quiet, but that's kind of what it's been with Rivera these last couple of years. Not a lot of big moves outside of the William Jackson and the Curtis Samuel. I think everything else has been bargain basement shopping. Unfortunately, we're probably going to hear more names like a Trey Turner, Andrew Norwell for the offensive line in free agency. I hope we don't, but I think that's what's going to happen. Eric mentioned Ben Powers. He's a really good guard from Baltimore who probably will get a big deal. He's an excellent player. Could be, he would be an instant starter and, certainly an upgrade. But, are we going to be able to pay him? I think obviously a quarterback. I think you guys nailed it already. I don't think that the team will have a lot of money to spend, whether they have it or whether they're allowed to or whether they want to. I don't know, but it doesn't seem like they're going to spend high for a veteran to come in and compete. Whoever this guy is, I think Marcus Mariota is a possibility. He played for John Gruden for like a year or two in Las Vegas. That's got. Gruden has some ties to Andy Reid in terms of offensive similarity. So I think, at least from that standpoint, he may be able to catch on. I know Eric's not a fan of Mariota, but I think him, Andy Dalton, any of these guys, Brissett, while they may have other opportunities, these guys are all backups. So their opportunities in general are limited. I think I heard JP Finley. I think he said maybe about 10 million, anything over 10 million, they're probably not going to do 10 million a year for a backup vet QB. So, does that limit your options? Absolutely. But, you're looking at backup veteran QBs. Your options weren't great to start with in the first place. So, we'll see where that goes. Linebacker, Cole Holcomb, are we going to bring him back? I think the team probably wants to upgrade from him. And if so, I think a Jermaine Pratt from Cincinnati is going to be out there. Good middle linebacker. David Long, really athletic linebacker kind of coming into his own from the Titans. I think those guys are solid options. Maybe shouldn't break the bank, but somebody you can get. Of course, the dream linebacker would be Tremaine Edmonds, but he's going to cost way too much. He's a guy in his prime. I think he's only 25, maybe 26. So he would be the ideal guy you pay in free agency, but we're probably
it'll be Khalil Hudson, Brian. That's who the other linebacker is going to be. Just get used to it now.
Yeah, no, you're right. It'll be Khalil Hudson and it'll be John Bostic again. But those are really kind of
Zach Cunningham's out there, and I like him. And they had him playing outside linebacker. They had him on the edge in Tennessee, and that's not where he belongs. They just saw, oh, he's 6'4". He must be an edge. No, put him at inside linebacker. He can tackle. He can play. He was good in Houston. I like Zach Cunningham. So if you're going to go linebacker, look at Zach. Even though Lee hates him, apparently.
I like that.
I mean, it will be Khalil Hudson, but.
What else do we have to talk about? We've got the. Do you guys want to talk about Lamar Jackson? I think we got to talk about Lamar.
Yeah. This is the closing thought. Here's a closing thought. I want to hear your opinions as a closing thought on Lamar Jackson. My opinion is this: you have a chance for an athlete, a quarterback who has lost 16 games in his career. He has won 46. Okay. He himself has won more games than this franchise has won in the last, what feels like 10 years. You have to at least look around that situation, right? In an effort to upgrade your roster. Now, do you execute that move? I don't know. There's a lot of factors in there. I would personally, just because it would solve a position that's been a problem for us since Y.A. Tittle was playing in the NFL. But you have to at least look. And the fact that they came out today and said, no, we're not interested, it did not make me feel good about the direction of this franchise in the immediate term. I don't know. You have to look for somebody like a Lamar Jackson. My apologies.
Okay. We're not interested in Lamar Jackson as our quarterback, or we're not interested in $250 million guaranteed and multiple high draft picks.
Who cares?
Because that's kind of what I got from that. There's no question you'd want Lamar Jackson starting for your team. Like if Lamar Jackson would come here tomorrow, absolutely, I would love it. And if they gave up all that for him, I'd certainly get over it. But that's a steep price to pay, and you are hampering potentially your ability to build a team around him. So that's probably why you see we're not interested in him, because we have $16 million in cap space right now. We have an owner who doesn't want to leave, but he has he's got a yacht with an IMAX theater, but his team doesn't have hot water in the showers. So, this team isn't swimming in cash is what I'm saying. So that's why I think we're not interested in Lamar Jackson. Nobody in their right mind is not interested in like the potential of Lamar Jackson quarterbacking their team. It's just, we're not in a position to go get him. This is a very bad time in the organization's history to try to sign a mega deal with a top 5 quarterback in the league.
Can we separate the picks and the money? I could care less about those picks. If it was just a pick situation, Eric, do it right now, right? And you had Lamar Jackson on like $30 million a year or whatever, like $40 million a year. I would do it tomorrow. Screw those picks. If you go back, our last 2 first-round picks were what? Jahan Dotson and the year before was
Jamin Davis.
Screw those picks, okay? Because as Jamin Davis has been okay, he's been good, but he not worth Lamar Jackson. Jahan Dotson was good, but there were 4 other receivers in the first round that produced more than Jahan Dotson. I know he got hurt, but the point is you can find receivers nowadays, first and second round all over the board. Screw those picks. Get Lamar Jackson. Now, the $250 million proposition is something you absolutely have to pay attention to. But at the end of the day, if we weren't in this Dan Snyder situation, screw that money too. That's what I would say. The Dan Snyder situation is very real, though, and that would prevent us and preclude us from doing anything relative to Lamar Jackson because there's new ownership group coming in. What do you guarantee Lamar Jackson from a contract perspective? If it's $250 million, so be it, but we can't do that. I don't believe we're going to get authorized. That deal would not get approved within the league either. I don't believe if Dan Snyder did try to do that at this point in time, because now you're officially interrupting or potentially interrupting any type of sale, because a new owner is going to say, hey, wait a minute, you're committing $250 million to a player that I have to then go off and see. So I don't think it happens, but yes, you should do it.
Yeah, I think that the biggest issue that everybody has with this is that there's 2 separate things, and I think Ellie, you started to touch on it a little bit. Is Lamar Jackson an excellent quarterback? Absolutely, that's a no-brainer. Is he better than anybody on our roster? Yes, absolutely. Is he better than anybody we've had in, yeah, Ellie, you said it, really, really long time. Yes, absolutely. If that's where the conversation stopped, then it would be simple. But you can't throw out the draft picks and the money because unfortunately we've got to give that up to get him here. It's not just money, and we apparently have an owner who's got a fancy house but doesn't have any money to pay for it, type of thing. And we can't do anything now in free agency. So while it would be great to have Lamar, we can't even talk to him because we have no money. Dan Snyder has no money, and he's put us in this position, which is one of the reasons why he's got to go because he keeps ruining, our opportunity to win. If we did have these things, yeah, you have to look at it because he is a guy who can absolutely help you, win you games for you, every time that he's on the field. But here's something else I don't think people think about. Are the Baltimore Ravens a good organization? The answer is yes. They're an excellent organization. They draft well. They win every year. The last time the Ravens picked in the top 10 was 2016. The time before that, 2003. They don't lose seasons. They don't tank. And that's because they have a good head coach who's won a Super Bowl. He's been in multiple AFC championship games. They've got a good scouting department, good front office. They plan for the future. They could not win, AFC championship, Super Bowl, get there with Lamar. This coaching staff is not even equal to the Baltimore coaching staff. I don't know if we have Lamar, if we could do even a quarter of what Baltimore did with him. And that's the other thing. I don't know how we could look and say, oh, hey, Ron Rivera, who didn't know he could be eliminated from a playoff game, is going to all of a sudden be in contention to win a Super Bowl now. Like it would raise his, IQ level here. Like I just don't know that even if we had him, we would probably ruin him somehow. If they can't do it, I don't see how we could do it. And again, that's not on Lamar. Lamar is excellent. We should get him, but I just, I don't think that this staff is now. If it's 2024 and it's the new staff and we got the new head coach and the new front office, oh, by all means, spend away, send whatever draft picks you want for the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and go do it. But at that point, we should probably just draft Caleb Williams.
If he's available at 1, I don't think he's not going to be available for us because we're going to win just enough games to be outside the top 10 again next year. All right. So, Commanders Declassified people, fans, if you want to call yourselves that, listeners, audience, subscribe, comment. Tell us how stupid we are in these comments about our stupid ideas about free agency. We love to read them. I'm kidding. We appreciate everything and everybody. Thank you for listening and checking us out. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And free agency is going to be exciting, just not for the Commanders. We are out of here.